Welcome to the Biz Easy podcast, where small business is simplified for greater results. Brought to you by Resources and Development. Go to www.resources-development.com for help in taking your business to the next level. And now, help me welcome the host of the Biz Easy podcast, Steve McCrillis.
Welcome to the Biz Easy podcast, coming to you from the small business capital of America, right here in Middle Tennessee, while reaching across this great nation of ours, including Guam. Translated in English for your listening pleasure. The Biz Easy Network, your resource to help take your business to the next level. Now, also stay tuned at the end of this podcast where you can receive your free Biz Easy Business Tool gift. Now, my name is Steve, your host, as we all learn how to stay better focused on the things that make your business great. Now, don't forget our book is selling on Amazon. Our ambition is to become a best-selling authors. Isn't it time your business becomes Biz Easy? If you enjoy the podcast, you will love the book. Now, I'd like to introduce you to my partner and our resident guru of coaching, our lead business coach, Skip Williams.
Hey, Steve, how you doing?
Good. Always good.
I'm a little shook up today.
Now, why is that?
I saw my neighbor murder someone in their backyard last night, and I had to call 811.
Murder someone? Don't you mean 911?
No, 811. We needed to find a safe place to dig.
I actually like that one.
All right.
So what is on the agenda today, Skip? What are we going to be talking about today?
The question is more sales always the answer?
Now, before you get into this, I have to infuse a little bit of experience.
Okay.
I would argue that of the over 5,000 companies that I visited, now you probably say the 4,000 companies that you visited over your career, when you ask them, what are the three top challenges? What do they typically say? What is always in the top three?
I think I wrote that right here in the blog, but yeah, they're always asking, they tell me they need more sales. Absolutely.
They need more sales. That's right. Let us have it. Let's go.
Well, for all businesses, increasing sales is one of the most important goals, but sometimes we see it as the answer to everything. Indeed, most financial challenges could be solved with more sales, but there are a few that cannot, and is not the only solution to bottom line profitability. Perhaps your business is young and struggling to gain the sales it needs to be viable. Or conversely, maybe you've been around for a while, been to the very profitable mountaintop, but now sales are lagging, putting financial pressure on your business. But even if your business is doing well right now and sales are growing, this advice is important for you also.
That is important. I mean, and there are people who are getting started and they do need sales. They want to grow their sales. That's the first and probably the foremost, most important thing that they've got.
That's right. I mean, a rising tide does float all boats, for sure. It is human nature to always be building something better than what you have right now, both professionally as well as personally. When we're struggling, we tend to conserve our resources, but as we grow, we're inclined to get a little fat, figuratively, and make things more comfortable for ourselves and often for others that we care about. The trap of creating high overhead and cost of doing business is an easy one for you or me to fall into. The cliche that if you take care of the pennies, the dollars will take care of themselves may be overused, but still stands true and can often be the difference between success or failure, especially in an economic downturn, changing customer demands, inflationary times, increased competition, as well as other times.
Mm-hmm.
Think about it. If something were to force you to lose 20 to 30% of your business right now, would you survive? In 2008, many did not. And those that did were watching their pennies long before the event occurred. Let's say that you make widgets and they cost you 85 cents to produce and you sell them for $1. This leaves you with 15 cents to pay overhead and make profit.
Okay, so we're going to dive right into the lessons when you think that sales is the only answer. Is that what I'm getting?
Right.
Okay, so what's lesson one?
Lesson one is to contain your overhead. If your overhead goes up, even if it's commensurate with sales going up, you're doing it wrong. Overhead is supposed to be a fixed expense. This means that it is a static amount of dollars that should remain the same when sales go up or when sales go down.
Isn't that
So
what fixed expense necessarily means?
that's what it's supposed to mean. But overhead will grow and shrink over time. But you always have to be vigilant and keep a tight rein on that, because if you build something that's uh, expensive to keep up, that just means you need that much more sales or that many more sales to keep the whole business floating. The whole idea of business is to sell enough to amortize the cost of overhead across the sales volume until it becomes negligible on a per unit or per dollar basis. And that's when you can get very, very competitive.
I would argue that a vast majority of the people, when I talk about sales, and they said that's the only thing that's going to help me out of this situation, I said, well, we get into this very discussion because, and I ask, well, what is your break even? That's another podcast, but nevertheless, they don't consider that their overhead is all over the place, or they don't consider the fact that overhead is an expense that is not calculated in most cases into their gross margin.
That's right. They're not carrying that burden. So businesses tend to wait until they get into trouble before trimming and controlling this overhead. And if that overhead includes leases, loan payments, or monthly costs that you can't get rid of in tough times, then it can easily sink you should sales slip.
Yep.
So now let's say we can reduce the cost of the widget to 80 cents per unit, just by shaving 5 cents from the cost of goods. We've increased the amount of money we have for paying overhead and making profit by 33%. That's huge, right? But wait, there's more. If out of those 15 cents, original 15 cents gross profit, 5 cents was what was left after paying overhead, you now would have 10 cents, which is a 100% increase, or doubling your bottom line. That makes sense, Steve?
Doubling. That's worth repeating.
So at 85 cents, you're making 85 cents cost selling for $1, you're making 15 cents. And of that 15 cents, 5 cents was left for paying overhead. The 15, so now you would have 10 cents by reducing your cost by a nickel, which is actually 100% increase or doubling of your bottom line profit.
Without increasing your sales by a dime.
Right, and without raising your price. That's right. What could your company do with twice the bottom line profit? I hope it's not to go out and buy a nice to have instead of a need to have, because this increased contribution margin will allow you to weather any economic storm of the future and perhaps allow you to capture a larger piece of the market right now.
Well, anytime that you find yourself with the potential of an economic forecast that is not in your favor, it is always a great idea to hoard cash. And I think we have a podcast about that too. Hoard that cash, because when your overhead does change or your sales do drop, you need the cash flow. Yeah,
if you can keep something in the piggy bank for that rainy day, that proverbial rainy day, you're going to be better off than 80% of the other businesses out there.
Okay, so lesson 1 was to contain your overhead.
Right.
Jump into lesson 2.
So lesson 2 is increase your contribution margin. That's what's left over from a sale of a product or service after you buy or produce. After what you buy or produce, it is your gross margin. When you state that in terms of each dollars of sales in the form of cents, this is your contribution margin. What we always want to be doing is looking for ways to increase that number from, for example, from that 15 cents to 20 cents. Increasing that contribution margin is crucial for improving the profitability of the business. There are many ways to do this, and some work better for one industry and not for others. Here are several ways to increase the contribution margin.
Okay, you're about to give several ways to increase your contribution margin. Now, as I look through the list, I got the bulleted list. Are these in any order of importance from your perspective?
No, because like I say, each industry is different. Every company is different. Some are going to work better for them than others. For example, the first one is price increase. Analyze the market conditions and competitors to determine optimal pricing. Not everybody can do that. Some people are already tied into contracts and can't do a price increase. So while that is a great advice for some businesses, not so much for others. The second one is cost reduction. We've got to streamline the operations, identify the areas for cost cutting without compromising the quality. The third is product mix management. Focus on promoting and selling high margin products or services rather than the low value services and products. Operational efficiency. Improve the production process and reduce waste to lower that variable cost. Volume discounts and bundling. Offer discounts for bulk purchases to encourage larger orders.
So you've given us 5 of the 10 so far. And I want to point out to our listeners and to our readers and to our watchers that you can go to our website, go to the blog that is sales increase the answer. I think that's not even the name of the pod. Nevertheless,
is more sales always the answer? Go ahead.
Right. Nevertheless, it is in a list of the blogs, and you can get these things with a little bit more enumeration as to what each one of these talks about. So go with the next 5, Skip.
All right. Number 6 is targeted marketing and sales strategies. Identify and focus on high margin customer segments of the marketplace. Supply chain optimization. Optimize that supply chain and reduce lead times and holding costs. Cross-selling and upselling. Encourage customers to buy additional products or upgrade to higher margin options. Customer retention. Invest in customer relationship management software or CRM software to retain existing customers. And then lastly, continuous monitoring and analysis. Regularly review financial and operational data to identify areas for improvement.
You know, you always know when Skip is putting a list together because there is always 100% of the time an area, I don't care what the subject is to analyze the data.
That's true.
So whatever the issue is, whatever the concern is, whatever the challenge is, there is going to be a bullet point. Monitor and analyze.
Yeah, it's good advice Monday through Friday.
Now, don't misunderstand me. I'm certainly not degrading that, but until in fact, the cop pulls you over on the highway and asks how fast you're going, doggone well how fast you were going because you look at your speedometer. That is analyzing the data.
That's true. And looking for areas of improvement.
That's right.
By implementing a combination of these strategies, Steve, businesses can work towards increasing their contribution margin significantly, which in turn contributes to higher overall profitability and financial stability. And I'd like to reiterate
what you're looking for: profitability and financial sustainability.
That's right. And I just want to reiterate what we've kind of talked about earlier, and that is, in order to make twice as much, you don't have to charge twice as much. You just have to charge twice the profit margin, right? So oftentimes 5% increase can give you a 25-30% increase in your bottom line.
One thing that always to keep in mind when there's an economic downturn that affects the country or even globally, you aren't the only one. And not everybody is adept to being able to tune in to the steps that you just provided. Not everybody, believe this or not, this may come as a bit of a surprise. Not everybody listens to the Busy podcast to know what they can do to maintain their business. I'm just throwing that out there.
Say it isn't true, Steve. But to your point, yeah, it's easy to make money when the economy is flying high, but what really separates the men from the boys or the professionals from the amateurs is running the business part of the business and doing the right and making the right decisions. But so in conclusion, there are many ways to increase the bottom line without increasing sales. It's best to take a holistic approach by using a combination of tactics, including cost management, customer retention, market positioning, diversification, quality improvement, effective marketing, financial management, and employee engagement to get the bottom line improvements that you really desire. In fact, these strategies can help you make more profit with less sales, which can make your company bulletproof. Top-line sales may provide you bragging rights, but bottom-line profits provide a long-term, sustainable business model that can be handed down to future generations.
With every client that I came in contact with in the opening discovery, when we got to know each other, I would ask them a very simple question. Would you rather have 1% of a million or 10% of 100,000? And what answer do you suppose 90% gave me?
The million.
Yeah, I'd rather have 1% of a million. I said, well, you do understand. Do the math. 1% of a million and 10% of 100,000 is exactly the same numbers. What you'd have to do is churn through 100 times more to get the same amount in your pocket. Now, how would you answer that question? Now, it doesn't mean to say that you can charge windfall prices to gain the profitability that your company deserves. But looking at all these things that you'd pointed out, I think that's very important to take note of. And also follow us on resource-development.com. You can look at all these items one more time. Say, we also, in the last 6 months, almost a year now, we've been adding a story about a real company that ran into near financial disaster. And it's one that you can probably relate to. This happened back in 2001. And you may be able to relate to what this company went through to know that it's just not an increase in sales. They had to do other things. Go ahead, take a listen.
It's story time.
A compelling example of a company that controlled both cost of goods sold COGS and overhead to turn their cash flow around and save themselves from disaster is American Airlines in the early 2000s. In the early 2000s, American Airlines faced severe financial difficulties. The airline industry was heavily impacted by the September 11, 2001 terrorist attacks, which led to a sharp decline in air travel demand. This, coupled with rising fuel costs, increased competition, and a challenging economic environment, pushed American Airlines to the brink of bankruptcy. By 2003, the company was losing billions of dollars annually and needed to take drastic measures to avoid bankruptcy. To survive, American Airlines needed to drastically reduce its COGS and overhead costs. The airline's management realized that their cost structure was unsustainable in the long run, and that significant changes were required to stabilize the company's finances. They took 4 steps to control COGS and overhead. 1. Restructuring labor costs. A. Negotiating with unions to implement wage cuts, reduce pension benefits, and alter work rules to increase productivity. B. Institute voluntary leave and early retirement programs to reduce headcount and cut labor costs. Thousands of employees took these packages, which helped American Airlines significantly lower its payroll expenses. 2. Fleet simplification and cost reduction. A. Retiring older aircraft. American Airlines made a strategic decision to retire older, less fuel-efficient aircraft and simplify its fleet. This move also reduced the need for specialized training and spare parts inventory. B. The airline re-evaluated its aircraft ownership strategy, opting to lease some planes instead of owning them outright to reduce capital expenditures and improved cash flow by converting fixed costs into more manageable variable costs. 3. Operational efficiencies and route optimization. A. Optimizing its route network by cutting unprofitable routes and focusing on more profitable markets. Also adjusting flight frequencies and eliminating less lucrative flights. B. The airline focused on improving operational efficiencies, such as better on-time performance and reducing turnaround times. 4. Vendor negotiations and cost control. A. Renegotiate contracts with suppliers and service providers to secure better terms and lower costs. B. The company implemented a centralized procurement strategy to take advantage of economies of scale and was able to negotiate lower prices and reduce administrative overhead. These measures taken by American Airlines to control COGS and overhead were crucial in turning the company's cash flow around and avoiding bankruptcy. By reducing its COGS and overhead, American Airlines was able to significantly lower its operating expenses. This, combined with a gradual recovery in air travel demand, helped the airline return to profitability in the years following the restructuring. The focus on cost control and operational efficiency allowed American Airlines to become more competitive in the challenging airline industry. American Airlines' turnaround in the early 2000s is a powerful example of how controlling COGS and overhead can save a company from disaster.
Now, everybody remembers, unfortunately, that terrible event of that day. Every company on some level was impacted. Obviously, the airline industry was directly impacted, and it took a little while for everybody to get their feet back underneath them. But it shows what you have to do in order to be able to do it. But be prepared. 2008 is another example. 2008, 2009, and again in 2020, we all know what happened there. But be prepared for those things because you never know. I mean, they come up, they give you a little tickle that it's going to happen. 9/11 obviously didn't. 2008, 2009, you had an inclination. COVID, you had what, 3-4 months to prepare? But have these things in your arsenal. What else you got to say about that, Skip?
Well, you bring up a good point. That's 3 times in the last 25 years. Your business life is going to probably last at least 25 years. So you're going to have at least 3 or 4 of these major events happen in your business life cycle. So be prepared for them. Squirrel the nuts away for the slow times, and be prepared. And if you're always going after just more sales, then a decline in sales is going to probably hurt you more than going after sales and becoming more efficient and watching your pennies inside your business.
And don't forget, always record and analyze. We've been adding this story time because it really is an inspiration to see that there is a real-time company out there that still exists today. We believe nothing is impossible without passion and perseverance. Anyway, Skipper, you can tell us a little bit about the free gift that we're offering for listening to us today?
Well, we've got a little reel. Why don't we play that?
Let's do it. This week's free gift is our break-even budget tool. Now, this tool is designed to help you kick off your budgeting process for the new year, quarter, or however you plan your sales. And we all know how important planning is because, as we've said many times in our podcast, if you don't know where you're going, just about any role will get you there eventually. Now, let's let Skip show us around the tool.
Thanks, Steve. I think this is going to take the fear out of budget season. I know we all get a little worked up when it comes to designing a budget, but it doesn't have to be that difficult. And this tool should help you get started with that process and make it relatively easy. The minimal amount of information you need to start with. Put your present sales revenue in here, put your cost of sales, put your present overhead in here, and then tell the spreadsheet how many months of data that represents. I mean, ideally you'd want 12 months, but if all you've got is a quarter's worth of information, you put 3 months. However much information you've got, you put in there and tell how many months it is. Once you've got that done, it'll tell you how much sales you need to do each month on average in order to break even. So this is 133,000 in this particular example. So I built a model with 150,000 all the way through, and it shows our profit stacking up over the course of the year. But you can adjust these numbers up or down based on seasonal fluctuation. You can also increase certain months or the whole thing to provide stretch goals. But it's a really simple tool here, just a minimal information, and then you can play around with these revenue numbers month by month until you've got what you think is a pretty good picture of what you'd like to see for the following year. And from this total document, then building your budget in your into your accounting system or to disseminate amongst your employees or managers, it becomes really easy. So minimal, maximal, right there. Steve?
As Kip mentioned, the inputs are minimal, but the outputs are quite powerful. Now, this tool has been very valuable to show not only break even, but also allows you to set future goals and financial expectations for your company's performance. And we hope this makes your business a little more predictable and, as usual, more profitable. And the way to get your copy of the break-even budget tool today for free is to go to the products page at resources-development.com and use the coupon code BUDGETTOOL. That's BUDGETTOOL to get yours absolutely free. Now, this product is a $39.95 value that you will receive for free for listening to us today. Our gift to help your life, make your life biz easier.
That's right, Steve. I hope it helps everybody. Thanks.
Great topic today, Skip. Appreciate your time. Appreciate your putting all the effort into this thing. And once again, I'm going to say it one more time so you don't forget, because I was told by a very brilliant man years and years ago, the only way that you can get a point across anyone is repetition, repetition, repetition. Record and analyze.
All right.
Anything else you want to add, Skip?
I think we're ready to wrap it up. Thanks, everybody.
And that's a wrap.
That is a wrap. Woo!
Thanks for listening to today's Biz Easy podcast. If you enjoyed our broadcast, we would kindly ask you to like, subscribe, and share with other entrepreneurs. See you next time on the Biz Easy podcast, where business is simplified for greater results.